presence and participation is for the reunification of North and South Korea.
This inspiration is highly needed.
It's important to take in consideration all aspects, including, we just heard it, the North Korean fears, and that nobody loses face. I don't believe one should be a winner and the other one should have lost the game. It's a question of finding a solution that both can be the winners.
And during this time of the pandemic, we need health for peace and peace for health. The two laureates, Professor Dame Sarah Catherine Gilbert and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, are the heroes who devoted themselves to health for peace and peace for health with their commitment to humanity.
I'm a scientist, and for some years my research has been on the development of vaccines against viruses that are known to cause outbreaks. We can achieve so much when we work together, each bringing our different strengths. The work we did to produce the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine was exhausting and overwhelming at times, but ultimately vital and rewarding. I hope that many young people will be inspired in their career choice by knowing about what we achieved.
ខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍រំភើបរីករាយយ៉ាងក្រៃលែងដែលត្រូវបានជ្រើសតាំងជាម្ចាស់ជ័យលាភីពានរង្វាន់សុនហា
Work together with wisdom, sincerity, and resolve. I do believe we can illuminate the path to peace both on the Korean Peninsula and beyond.
Please join me in working, striving, and praying for a Korea that is safe, prosperous, flourishing, united, and finally at peace.
Let Korea's example teach the world that peace can thrive if humanity can collaborate, communicate, and develop together. Kamsahamnida.
In the Korean Peninsula, a fragile truce remains in place since the 50s. Unfortunately, all these efforts produce very little outcome. This makes the 2022 UPF World Summit all that more important and timely.
breakthrough of peace on the Korean Peninsula would reflect globally. If peace will be the cornerstone of every nation and every generation, then the 38th parallel can become a symbol of peace rather than division. I wish that peace prevails in the Korean Peninsula and the entire world. Thank you.
Are doing a great job making any effort to unify Korea, but respecting human rights, having the sense of history that drives you to this effort for unification. This is a win-win process that say nobody will be damaged by the Korean unification.
In this context, the Korean Peninsula could be the ground of an exemplary pathway to peace. In order to have a fruitful dialogue, the strategy should be based on political, cultural, and social interactions responding to the aspirations of both people and regimes.
I am sure that the Universal Peace Federation Summit will contribute to this important process of searching for constructive solutions to a conflict that has been going on for too long.
The people of Kosovo and of South Korea share a similar past of suffering under occupation and of struggle for freedom. Freedom means and seeks peace. And to attain lasting peace, all of us must do our part wherever we are.
이 민족이 세계 모든 나라들이 하늘을 부모로 모시는 자리에서만이 진정한 세계 평화, 자유, 평등, 평화, 통일의 행복한 하늘 부모님을 중심한 인류 한 가족의 세계가 이루어질 수 있습니다.
Good morning, everyone. It's a Saturday morning, but we're very grateful for everyone here. More grateful because you made the effort on a Saturday morning, which is not so easy, but I'm sure you'll receive many blessings because of your effort. We're going to have a one-day seminar about introducing, since the principles of peace that UPF is following, also examining the vision of the founders of UPF, their hopes for UPF, and also the activities that UPF UK is doing that we want to engage you with. So we'll start with the introductory video, not the one you were seeing, which is more for people online, but the the 2020 World Summit introduction. I'm sure.
UPF had its inaugural assembly on September 12, 2005, at the Lincoln Center in New York City. Reverend Sun Myung Moon delivered the keynote address.
In closing, I ask you to devote your best efforts for the development and the success of the Universal Peace Federation. Thank you. Thank you.
After UPF was founded, there was a series of world tours where the message of UPF was taken literally to every corner of the world.
That it is time for all nations and religions to break down their barriers. Through this, the era of one family under God will arrive and last forever.
UPF is God's cherished hope. The founders spoke repeatedly of an international peace highway connecting the world from Santiago, Chile to London, across the Bering Strait, what has come to be known as the Peace Road, and a vision for a renewed United Nations. UPF emerged on the foundation of decades of programs initiated by its founders and carried out in all parts of the world. Its growth and development over the past 15 years has been dramatic, if not miraculous, owing in large part to the work of tens of thousands of ambassadors for peace, peace activists, and volunteers who draw from all nationalities, religions, ethnicities, cultures, and traditions, bound together by a vision of peace, a vision of humanity as one global family under one God. The range of programs over the years has been both broad and expansive, from character education to strengthening the family, from conflict prevention to conflict resolution, from poverty reduction to environmental stewardship, from interfaith dialogue to youth service initiatives, from support of the United Nations to partnerships with the African Union, and a wide range of international organizations and NGOs. UPF has a global, multinational, multi-faith network of more than 100,000 ambassadors for peace who support and contribute to the mission and works of UPF. UPF's highest award, the Leadership and Good Governance Award, has been given to distinguished leaders the world over. The World Summit Series is UPF's flagship program involving the highest level of leaders from around the globe, including current and former heads of state and government, to address the critical challenges facing humanity.
Very appropriate that we are here on the 100th anniversary of Reverend Moon's birth, because out of the devastation of World War II and he and his found the courage to dream that they could achieve something. And it is amazing what they have created together.
Programs have been successfully held in Korea, the USA, Senegal, South Africa, Nepal, Cambodia, and other nations. The most recent structural innovation within UPF has been the creation of a set of associations dedicated to collaboration among leaders from various fields. These pillar associations are: the International Summit Council for Peace was initiated by UPF co-founder Dr. Hak Jahan Moon in 2019 on the occasion of World Summit 2019 in Seoul, Korea. ISCP is an international network of current and former heads of state and government. The International Association of First Ladies, IAFLP, a project of the ISCP, affirms and uplifts the unique role of First Ladies in contributing to peace and development. IAFLP brings together current and former First Ladies from throughout the world, drawing upon their experience and wisdom as women leaders and as role models who serve their countries in significant ways. The International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, IAPP, is a worldwide association of parliamentarians which provides a forum to bring their experience and wisdom to bear in the search for solutions to our world's problems. UPF maintains that any successful strategy for peace must take into account the spiritual dimension of our human identity, experience, and interactions. Based on this worldview, UPF initiated the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, IAPD. The International Media Association for Peace, IMAP, represents a worldwide professional network of journalists who support a socially responsible and moral media. IMAP recognizes the vital role that journalists play in providing objective reporting to foster an informed citizenship. The International Association of Academicians for Peace, IAAP, is a global interdisciplinary academic initiative aimed at contributing toward the realization of a world of lasting peace. IAAP is dedicated to building professional networks for academicians to foster a world of peace. The International Association for Peace and Economic Development, IAED, affirms the role of businesses, business leaders, and investors to make the world a better place. In early 2020, UPF convened a rally of hope featuring dignitaries including Pastor Paula White, Cambodia Head of State His Excellency Hun Sen, President Macky Sall of Senegal, former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, former U.S. Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and many others.
I believe that the Universal Peace Federation and its a broad set of partnerships in the realms of politics, religion, academia, media, economy, arts, women and youth serve as a good model. I believe the Universal Peace Federation will become a cornerstone to build lasting peace around the world and a heavenly unified Korea based on interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values.
Celebrating 15 years, UPF will continue to grow through service, dialogue, and collaboration, guided by its spiritual and moral vision of one family under God.
So, good morning. Anyway. So this is an overview of particularly the International Universal Peace Federation. We are the UK branch of an international NGO. This NGO is or has general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. So it means Specific consultative status means that you have a set of platforms in which United Nations can express its programs. If you have general consultative status, it means that there's quite a broad set of platforms upon which the United Nations has similar programs, and it can bring those programs to a grassroots level. So there are, I think when I saw last, it was over 5,000 or more specific consultative status or special consultative status. But there are a much smaller number of general consultative status, I think just a few hundred. We've been working with the United Nations for many, many years, even preceding Universal Peace Federation's launch in 2005. I wanted to talk about a few of the things that UPF is doing in the United Kingdom. And if I could with AV's help. Oh, it works. Oh, great. Thanks. So one of the areas that Universal Peace Federation has been working over many years has been interfaith. And there are key times, and particularly in Birmingham, they've been very consistent and over many years. But principally in February, there's the World Interfaith Harmony Week, and in November, often there's a National Interfaith Week. Those two times, we've often held interfaith activities. But it comes more fundamental as a philosophical belief that having a religious component, political component coming together, there can be a useful counterpart that can draw things out of each other. So often politicians have a faith background that they can draw on, and religious leaders can reach to that. In social media, we've specialized, particularly in the UK, in commemorating the different special events of different faiths throughout the year. So currently we had something on Diwali. Yes, we've put out. Another area that we've been developing is art and culture for peace, because culture can reach to places that politics and other initiatives can't. So art and culture for peace is a very important area, and Dr. Sangeeta Shrestha is going to be the chair for next year and is organizing an event on January 25th. It's a Saturday afternoon if you want to put it in your diaries. More details will come soon. Other areas we've focused on quite a bit is peace on the Korean Peninsula, because UPF was, in a sense, started and is enrooted in many ways in South Korea or on the Korean Peninsula. So that we have many international conferences in Seoul and so on. Humphrey Hawksley is often moderating these webinars, and we draw on academics, think tanks, and other initiatives to consider how to find peace in the Korean Peninsula. Like today, we have this program several times a year, both here and in Birmingham. And it's always a feature of our annual programs to delve into the roots of UPF and its principles. Humanitarian work, we have several humanitarian projects that we've been supporting. One is the Nigeria Character Education Program, That's developing quite well, and it has a 2-year partnership with the Federal Ministry of Education in Nigeria. The idea of character education being taught in all schools in a way that's appropriate for all faiths within the Nigerian context has been very attractive. And they've been doing a program in the Federal Capital Territory in 20 schools to get some feedback on the curricula that they've established. Now it's going to be rolled out in Imo State, and there's 2 more states that are following. And we've been supporting particularly training of trainers. So those trainers then go out and will teach teachers who will be delivering the curricula to schools. So within a few years, we're hoping that it will be taught throughout Nigeria. But we've also been helping an orphanage in Kyiv, in Ukraine, and there's a Project Cure, which is developing medical equipment to Palestinian hospitals, which we also supported. That's being promoted by our Middle East UPF. Yeah. This is a Peace Road. I know a few of you were there. But Peace Road this time, Peace Road refers to like an infrastructure across the world. I think it was in the video. We did a small effort in Dover commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Channel Tunnel, which is connecting the UK to Europe continent, Eurasian continent, Europe and Asian continent. So the idea of having an infrastructure which connects the world is one thing that Father and Mother Moon, they really were keen on emphasizing. We have partnerships, we have a number of partnerships with other groups. And I know the environment is particularly important. So Earth and I have been promoted. They want us to help promote them online. But also we have a partnership with Green or Clean Cyclers, or is it Green or Clean Cyclers? They supported us, and Canon Otto, he's spoken at a number of our conferences about the environment, including World Environment Day. Our youth area, we've had the Young Achiever podcast 3 times this year, and annually we've held the Young Achiever Award, a ceremony in Parliament giving to 20, usually about 20 young people who are really doing great things in their local area or for humanitarian purposes or different projects. Then they are awarded. We invite their local MP, the constituency MP, to come. Fortunately, this year we booked it for July 4th, and there was an interruption. Unfortunately, the general election was called for July 2nd, and we had to drop it. It was also on July 4th, sorry. So we couldn't hold it this year, and we're making plans early next year. We've also had follow-up events here, but we want to find another youth project. Before we were helping in a community centre garden in Battersea. We did one here, and they did it in Birmingham as well. We'll come up with another one soon. Another area is women's empowerment, which Margaret has been very active, and also the Duchess Niven has been helping a lot with the women's empowerment area with a group called Women Supporting Women, which meets monthly here. But also we commemorate International Women's Day, elimination of violence against women. We're also preparing for, and there will be, there was a recent event on October 12th as well. Are there other conferences that we've held and are having? There we go. So that's a strong component of UPF UK activity. Also, we have different events, International Day of Peace. Some years we have Africa Day. There are a lot of other different events we have, and we're very open if partners come to us and say, please, can we have an event with you? So the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy, based in Berlin, has held about 3 or 4 different conferences here, but had a very good one in August, at the same time as our Peace Road, which is a complication, but anyway, we got through it. Also, we're quite active with social media. Ernst Kamger is our social media officer. We have just over 130,000 followers on Facebook, and we've been quite active there. On X or Twitter. Instagram is a bit weaker. Duchess, I think, has 1 million followers on Instagram, which is amazing. And it becomes another arm of our activities to highlight interfaith activities, to highlight popular days, peacemakers, amazing peacemakers, and their initiative to highlight various video shorts or fundraising projects or events. Social media is very useful. So that's a summary of UPF UK. I'd like to invite now, Duchess Niven of El Gamal of Lamberton to come up. Just one second, I want to read out your bio. Actually, I'm very grateful to Duchess Niven for coming. You can see she's not in great shape physically, but that makes it even more amazing when she comes. But can I? So Duchess Niven intertwines her proud Egyptian heritage with a journey of survival and resilience. You can see that today coming up with many health issues. Her early life in Egypt was marked by beauty as well as trauma. Despite family difficulties and personal pain, her unbreakable spirit led her to build a life in London, defined by purpose, success, and compassion. Through her beauty brand, Duchess Prestige, she promotes well-being and self-empowerment with her charity works, honoring her son, Sheikh Zayed bin Ahmad Al Maktoum, who supports children with MBL immune deficiencies. Her memoir, Peace, Please, and Mother's First Aid, advocates for mental health, child protection, and the value of kindness. And as a UPF Ambassador for Peace, an exemplary one, and as our patron, she inspires others to pursue peace and justice. Her journey embodies resilience, compassion, and hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to just take my laptop.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
It is an honor to stand before you as a patron and ambassador of peace, representing our shared vision of a world rooted in understanding, compassion, and harmony. The work of the Universal Peace Federation and the United Nations is essential in the pursuit, as they both stand as pillars of diplomacy, fostering a global culture of peace and cooperation. This organization reminds us that genuine peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but a commitment to justice, mutual respect, and the well-being of all. Our duty as advocates for peace transcends borders and beliefs. We are called to address the roots of conflict, inequality, injustice, and the lack of understanding, and to uplift the vulnerable and weak by promoting dialogue, education, and collaboration. We build a future where peace is sustainable and inclusive. As someone deeply committed to these ideals, my own journey has been shaped by this advocacy. In my memoir, Peace Please, I reconnect a path from the heritage-rich streets of Egypt to a life of purpose in London. Despite profound challenges, I emerge with a drive to contribute positively to society. Through my beauty enterprise, Duchess Prestige, my charity, my charitable work supporting children with immune deficiencies, I am strive to foster healing and empowerment for others. Today, I urge each of you to embrace our shared responsibility for peace. Together, we can champion the rights of women, children, and all who seek justice, and build a world where compassion and resilience prevail. We should walk the path of peace, sharing the light of sun, moon, and bringing hope to all by maintaining respect and unity. Thank you for your dedication to this cause. Let us continue to work tirelessly for a world of dignity, unity, and peace. Thank you.
So next is David. David.
Oh, and David can start, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I want to invite now our main speaker for today. Rev Dr. David Hanna is president of UPF for the North region, which is Scandinavian and UK and Ireland and Iceland. Region of Europe, and David was for a long time in Ireland, for example, as you say, president of the Family Federation in Ireland for many years, but has been a long time also studying and presenting these principles. He and his wife also comes many times to these events, for which we're very grateful. But we're very honored, I think, for him to make a great effort to come. And I'd like to welcome him to the stage. Thank you. Do you have your...
Thank you very much. Where was I? I just came from Wiltshire. Place called Seend or Cleeve House in Wiltshire this morning. Wonderful. It's my honor to be here, actually. Sorry, I'll take that. Yes. Thank you. We're just getting organized here. So many greetings to you all. Thank you for coming, and to those online. I know we have a big kind of constituency online today. It's becoming a good alternative, but we try to provide for all. I know even Scotland is joining in, so that's very good news. I'm going to bring up my screen, and this is really an introduction to the principles of peace. Yes, but today I want to go a little bit more to share something about Father and Mother Moons, our founders' own idea. So it's something which we say it's not necessary that those who work with UPF know all these things. It certainly isn't necessary that they agree with all of these things. But this is Father Moon's more contribution to the area of religious thought and understanding, and what is the basis behind and the motivation for so many of the things which you are familiar with from an introduction such as Robin Gay. Very wonderful. You know, a small team here, but they're doing all that in the UK. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? Why don't we give them a big round of applause? I think it's excellent. So I see a few faces in the audience who I know have been to one of these seminars from me before. That's wonderful. Nothing wrong in that at all, right? I just hope you will inspire me to say something slightly different of interest to you. And that will, you never know. This is how it happens. It's just inspiration, isn't it? And for me, it never comes out quite the same way twice. So I hope you find some value for yourself and your work in what I have to say today. So my first talk here, I term universal values as a foundation for world peace. And I like to start with this picture. I think for some of you it's very familiar. It's like something of pure beauty to me when I look at that. This is our globe, our planet. It's not visible yet, but it will be soon. Something is not.
I think you haven't started.
I haven't really started it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what
Here we go. No, I'm going to go into this one. That's it.
Maybe it didn't like being unplugged.
Okay. We have a.
Let's try it again.
There was a happy little ping on the computer, which means everything's okay. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you. This is our title. This is my picture. It's the globe. Of course, when we look at that, we don't see different colors for the various nations or lines drawn across the states of America, in this case, as we're looking down on the United States and South America there, Central America. So, you know, those artificial lines, they're really in the minds of men and human beings that have divided the world up. Of course, it's nice to have different countries and different traditions and cultures. We really encourage diversity and want to see unity in that diversity, not sameness. So when we say universal, we're really looking to see a wonderful combination of free cultures and peoples living and working together. But we want to see also a world with much less emphasis on boundaries, you know, of the spiritual kind and also the physical kind. Hence, projects like the Peace Road that you saw covered. One aspect of that Peace Road in Father Moon's proposal was that it should be running in a mile-wide corridor. And in that corridor, you don't need passports or visas. Well, that's quite a nice thing, isn't it, to travel the world without that? So how practically it works out, I'm not sure, but very, very interesting. We need people of vision, don't we, to be able to stir things into action. This is a graphic produced by NASA. I like to show this because you might, if you haven't seen it before, you may wonder what that, I can't point at the television, I just realized, right? That's old technology. So that little blue sphere, the larger one there, is all the water that's on the surface of the Earth, or under the surface as well. If it's rolled into one ball, that's the size it would be. Surprisingly small, isn't it? Because we think the oceans are so deep and so vast, but actually, realistically, they're not so deep, actually. To us they are, but it's just small variations on the surface of a very wide planet. So, and the mid-size one ball there is all the lakes and rivers, and the tiny, can you see a tiny third little one? That's all the fresh water, right? it's a very sparse resource, right? So it shows the kind of delicate balance of this world. And I just think to start with those two things is helpful, a helpful perspective, really, for everything that we want to talk about. And we had a good introduction in the film and Robin Marsh's talk as well to the interfaith or interreligious work of the Universal Peace Federation. Father Moon started this long before, back in 1985, for example, although his work in this area preceded that by some decades. He convened an assembly of the world's religions, which brought religious leaders together from all around the world. And at his opening speech, he said this: religions should be concerned with God's will for world salvation more than with the salvation of the individual or the welfare of their own denomination. As far as I know, God is not sectarian. He's not obsessed with minor details of doctrine, and we should quickly liberate ourselves from theological conflict, which results from blind attachment to doctrines and rituals, and instead focus on living communication with God. Amen to that, Amen, whatever we want to say, in support of that, right? I've just come, actually, Margaret mentioned I came up from Wiltshire. I was teaching there at a 3-day retreat for Christian ministers of all denominations. And we were sharing, again, the thought of Father and Mother Moon in a more deeply kind of religious way, I suppose you could call it, but dealing with the concepts with which they're very familiar. And that was part of this work to bring harmony, even within the Christian world, which is very much needed, right? Still, intense divisions continue, and we want to encourage this new level of cooperation and working together and joining in with a common vision. So he continued, in God's parental heart and his great love, there is no discrimination based on color or nationality. There are no barriers between countries or cultural traditions, between East and West or North and South. Through interreligious dialogue and harmony, which was the theme of this particular conference, we should realize one ideal world of peace. So he always saw religious leaders as naturally being ones called upon to take a leading role in this area because of the kind of individual ideas to which they profess, and their faith is founded on. It should lead to such a world where we can cooperate and work together. So generally, the fact that we're talking about religious ideas here, although as I said, for UPF programs, it's not always necessary to do that. It's very inclusive. Even I feel one of the encouraging things about the unification movement generally is it really respects conscientious people. And that's very important. It has been the case that sometimes religious groups have looked down on non-believers. Is that true? I think it's fair to say that. But to really recognize the contribution from conscientious, peace-loving people of no particular faith is so important, because we won't realize the kind of world that we're striving for without the cooperation of such wonderful people. And maybe in the process we find also spiritual values that we can share together and find in common. So I ask this question: does religion have a contribution to make? Some people would say no. It's quite popular to sideline it and remove it from the conversations which go on in our society, isn't it? It's seen as something irrelevant in some circles. But true religious practice, it seeks to restore peace and promote certain things. It promotes, and I'm talking quite universally, values which exist across the kind of range of faiths that we have in the world. Humility in front of God is a very a unifying theme. Respect to parents, fidelity in marriage, loyalty, the idea, the value of public service and living for others. This kind of thing is is very much a part of the universal religious message. So too is personal discipline. You know, it starts with me. I have to look inside myself and put myself right, and that requires some element of sacrifice and control of physical desires, having a good relationship between my mind and elevating that mind and conscience, and having my body disciplined and doing what my heart wants it to do. So we also see such qualities as restraint and patience and forgiveness being encouraged, especially in relationships, and an encouragement to love others as you love yourself, and to love neighbors and to love the other, and even to love one's enemies, or kind of extend beyond the kind of what might come as our first natural impulses, to bring a solution which goes over certain historical barriers and repeated actions. So these themes I'll return to during the explanation of the more fundamental principles. And as a kind of supporting aspect of these talks, I'll occasionally throw in a quote from a various Holy Scripture or something like that. Is that okay? But there's no kind of favoritism here, right? And I won't be able to cover all traditions. So if yours is not there, please forgive me, but it's not intentional. I come across something and I think, oh, that would fit well at this point. So something from the Holy Quran fits well, I think, with what I've just said. It says, prayer restrains one from shameful and unjust deeds, and remembrance of God is the greatest thing in life, without doubt. I mentioned the importance of kind of personal discipline and looking within oneself, which is common to the world's religious traditions. And that emphasizes the fact that in all decisions and all progress, or the opposite, in human affairs, it's always a human factor which is naturally there. It's based on the quality of the individual human beings who are the protagonists in those situations. So the integrity of the individual is an absolute kind of key factor, wouldn't you say? It's just so important. And you can have a body set up, but who is running that body, right? Or an organization. What is the quality of the people who are the main players in that, and what is their kind of personal influence on things, on the decisions which are made? It's going to come always from inside such people. It's people who make decisions, and their character, of course, is shaped by many different experiences and influences that they've had in their life and continue to have. So one, what should be always a positive influence, I don't say it always is, but should be the kind of religious culture and community and tradition of which those people are a part, as I said, if they have one. And therefore, that provides a kind of basis for unity based on universal values contained in those philosophies and religions. And it's a worthwhile exercise, I think. I'll be doing a bit of that here, to look to the values that are common to the world's great religions and philosophies and see what they can contribute today. What can we gain from them? So again, these are just some representative symbols of various religions, but not an exclusive collection by any means. So, but it's remarkable when we look at the lasting legacy of these traditions and their contribution to humankind, our culture, our civilization. If we just reject all that out of a kind of popular adherence to atheism or atheistic views, we'll be much poorer for that. And that's the point that we're making, really, even for those conscientious non-believers. So the unification principle, or these principles of peace, provides certain things. It provides a new expression of religious truth for the age in which we're living, and each age kind of needs a revitalized expression of truth. That's why we get new movements in the religious history and religious world. Interestingly, and rather sadly, those new movements are often the object of persecution or ridicule when they come along, but often end up being adopted. It's a case sometimes when you look at religious history of, burn the heretic and then sometime later adopt the heresy, because you realize actually what was being said was very, very appropriate and very valuable. So, we hope that that is one of the traditions that we can lose and do so fairly quickly. But this expression of the ideas that I'm sharing today opens the way really for a harmonized view of religion and science, and encourages that we can look for something which is a harmonized understanding that includes both of these views and doesn't see them as opposites or enemies or contradictory contributions to society, but they should be harmonized and should accommodate each other to be able to give a full and proper guidance for life and human affairs. Also, it identifies universal values, as we've talked about in major world religions, those that are active today, and reveals God as a God of heart and identifies clearly the importance of human responsibility in these efforts to create a better world. So it's not leaving everything into the hands of God, but it's, I suppose, following a little bit the line of St. Augustine. Do you remember him at the end of the 4th century? He said something. He said, pray as though everything depended on God and work as though everything depended on you. And I think that's quite a good approach to life. At least I like it. And we need both of those things. Stop ourselves getting too kind of full of ourselves, too much hubris and that kind of idea. And also not sitting back and thinking God will do everything, it's going to happen without. We need to put in our full effort. And then God will add his effort, of course, and many great things will happen based on that kind of collaboration. So it provides an understanding which is there to tackle real problems, not shying away from real problems, but actually saying these are things we have to work together to solve. And we have, as we know, very many. So we appreciate everybody, and UPF draws people who are kind of working in these diverse areas, but really contributing to solutions, as we saw, as testified by the Duchess who spoke to us and others who are working with UPF in their own particular areas, doing something very significant for society and for their communities, but then also finding help and support through the kind of fellowship and the brotherhood that we have here and the sisterhood that we have here. So unification principle or principles of peace also combine elements of revelation, deep kind of spiritual insight, you could say, and reason. This kind of good combination. I think it's a healthy combination myself, but then you say, well, you would, right? But there's a little caveat which I add at this point, because what I'm going to be sharing here is very much a picture of an ideal, something which is a little unlike the reality that we face day to day. Even I'm talking there about real problems. But we need an ideal to reach for and to understand as something to aim for, something to be like a model that we want to aspire to. And that is something that the religious ideal can provide. But while I'm sharing those things, my caveat is that in this first talk particularly, I'm talking about this original ideal or potential for human beings, and I'm freely referring to God and religious concepts, not because UPF does that all the time, but because this is in particular Father Moon's view and understanding, which I'm sharing, so I'm being true to that. But I'm not implying any judgment at all on people who think or choose to live or behave differently to the examples which I'm giving. So I'm going to be talking about marriage and family in a very kind of original, fundamental way. But that's not to criticize anybody who may have difficulties in their marriage or in their family or choose another so-called lifestyle, as we term it, right? So if you can understand that and forgive me in advance, you'll know why I'm concentrating actually on views which perhaps are, in terms of their expression, nowadays they're in the minority, right? And I think they need to be heard, and we need to revisit these ideas. Well, let's start very basic points about Father Moon's thinking, right? This is about the nature of God, the Creator, and what is the kind of understanding of God that he's bringing in a revised way to the world through his new insights. In his theology or his understanding, he reveals God to be both like father and mother, or male and female aspects in a harmonized unity and oneness. Then we'll see that this is represented here, just in my diagram, by the plus and minus. But also God is a God who has an internal character, qualities and aspects which are very deep and hidden and invisible, but also aspects or a presence in the universe in the form of energy, or it's called pre-energy in this case, which is more like an external form or external aspect. So this first cause or creator is the origin of the internal character or nature of everything, and also the origin of the external form and nature of everything. So, I myself and you yourselves, you have an inner personality and heart and character and a spirit, we can call it, but also you have a physical presence, which is here. That's the body that we meet and recognize and interact with. But those two, that internal and external aspect, and they're working together, is what makes a person, isn't it? So these two things, which are very identifiable in ourselves, we can't think of a person without thinking of those two aspects harmoniously unified, then that is the case actually for everything. Everything that's in the created world has its own internal character and its own external form. And also, God, the Creator, is the origin of the masculine nature of everything and of the feminine nature of everything. And I use those words in a very broad, maybe we could say more in the way of Oriental philosophy. Masculinity and femininity includes complementary pairs of all kinds of qualities that we see in the world, where you can't have one without the other. So if you talk about something that's very smooth, already in the back of your mind is something that's very rough, right? Because you're contrasting, right? And they exist together. I won't tell you which is the masculine and which is the feminine, right? Yeah, but there's a pairing system, right? And there are these different qualities, or you could say there's convex, and that automatically means concave, because it's got an internal kind of curve when you have an external curve. So everything exists in internal and these complementary pairs. If you think about music, often people think that music is notes, lots of notes, right, that you have to write down and play. But actually, if you're anybody who starts to, mess around with music, you realize also it's silence as well. It's the non-notes. It's when you're not playing anything, which also makes so much of the contribution towards music. So, you can't have one without the other, right? So this pairing system is there, and that's where I'm using masculine and feminine in much more of a broader way than just gender. But that's the nature, a human being. A man has mainly masculine characteristics, but also feminine characteristics. And without those, us men, we wouldn't be able to understand women. It's already quite a difficult job for us. You have to have a little sympathy for us. But I'm sure you find the same way, right? You really understand men, but it's those kind of qualities which make a rounded person, isn't it? That a man can be very strong and very courageous, but also can be tender and very sensitive. These things are masculine and feminine, and it's beautifully harmonized. So the nature of God is like this, and I'm being very presumptuous to put up a kind of bubble diagram. I know I'm aware of that, but I'm going to do it anyway. God has internal character, which is emotion and intellect and will, also concepts and laws which are there embedded in the universe, and they are a certain way. We might want them to be a different way, but they're not. And this is why we say it's part of God's nature or God's character or the creator or the origin, whatever name we want to give this. It comes from somewhere in a certain way. And that is the internal character. God has an external form, which is original energy. And this gives rise to energy in all its forms, which is present and getting everything moving and interacting and creating and developing. It's also life itself. I mean, life is an extraordinary thing, isn't it? And as of this moment, science doesn't have an explanation of what life is. So what gives this animation to what we call life? And as far as we know, evidence so far is only found to be existing on this planet. It may be other places, but we don't have proof of that. So, this is something. And life always wants to move ahead, doesn't it? It wants to become more involved and more evolved, and it wants to become more active and more constructive and create something greater and create a better society and a better world. There's a drive inside that, inside life itself, which exists in us. Now, in the center is something I mentioned earlier called heart. It's actually a translation of a Korean word, 심정. My wife is Korean, and I've asked her, what does 심정 mean? And she says, it can't be translated into English. So that's very helpful, right? Right, because to a Korean hearing this word, it's something very deep. It's something that kind of gives rise even to love itself. It's an impulse, there's something there. So we chose to use the word heart in this kind of new extended way. Of course, we know the word heart very well, right? But this is the definition of heart in this context or in this particular philosophy. Heart is the impulse to experience joy through giving and receiving love. So God is love is a common expression in the Christian world, but this is saying, actually, that's true, but let's go a little bit deeper. God is a God of heart, and heart is the impulse to experience joy through giving and receiving love. And to give and receive love implies already not just me, but an object of my love, right? So that is the desire to create, is to have an object in which you see yourself reflected and developed. And then your joy becomes more substantial and more real. So this is giving kind of a deep insight into the reason for God creating in the first place. So it's a source of motivation for creating, and it's also the source of meaning. Meaning comes into everything through this aspect of heart, through the faculties of intellect, emotion, and will that are part of God's internal nature. And it's also the core of human nature. We're modeled after this. It should be. Everybody has that potential and that heart in their core of their being, but it's not always exercised. And it's not always connected to the intellect, emotion, and will. But it should be. Because if all our faculties are springing out of this aspect of heart, which is defined in this way, then what we think is going to produce truth. What we feel in our emotions is going to produce beauty. And what we do through our will and our actions is going to be good. So it's the way to produce beauty, truth, and goodness is to be connected back to this heart which comes from the origin. Are you with me? Is that okay as an explanation? Because, I was just thinking, I struggle with that. I'm just a messenger, and a poor one at that. I mean, I just want to. No, really, I want to guide you towards this thought, which is very profound, and it is very deep. It's making a huge contribution to thinking in this whole area, and will do more so. Really, its time has not come, although it's been taught and is being followed in countries all around the world. It hasn't really hit yet. The academic world hasn't grasped it, and the religious world is always a little bit cagey about new ideas, doesn't like it so much, right? And is a bit suspicious. So, in its infancy, really, historically, it hasn't, its day has not come, but it's on the way, right? And this is part of it. Very exciting, new, important ideas. So, this talks about the pair system. I already mentioned this kind of complementarity of pairs, right? And the idea that God as a subject and origin of everything needs an object to love. So we use subject and object in this way. Subject is initiating, and that gives it the kind of role of subject at any time. And the object is responding, and that gives it a kind of a characteristic as object at any time. But this is a very dynamic system in many cases, right? Imagine there's a conversation between two people going on, right? So when you start speaking, you're in the subject role. That's a subject activity. And when you are speaking, the other person should be listening, right? That's the object's kind of response, is to listen. And then in a conversation, those positions are swapped, aren't they? The person who was listening is now going to say something. And the person who said something before has to listen. Right? Have you had a conversation with somebody and you feel after a while, I don't think this person's listening, right? I don't think they're listening to me, right? And often there's a little clue. It's the fact that even though you said something, maybe you think that's quite profound or quite helpful, but they just continue speaking from where they left off before. It's like they haven't really engaged with what you said. So they just want to say their thing, and when you're speaking, they're thinking up the next thing that they're going to say. So this isn't really engaging in this giving and receiving process. And the fact is that all nature works very harmoniously in this way by natural law. But human beings, we've somehow deviated and lost this ability as well as other problems. It's part of our problem, and we'll look at that a bit later. So this pair system of giving and receiving between subject and object partners, this is the relationship between our mind and body. And our mind should be subject over our physical desires and our body. We shouldn't be directed by our body what to do, right? But through the good kind of conversation between mind and body, we should arrive at the right thing to do, right? So this is, as I said, between speaker and listener, or that's dynamic, that swaps around. Husband and wife. Some people may say that, well, the husband is subject and the wife is object. Do you like that? No. So we put it the other way as well. Wife is the subject, husband is the object. But again, it's a dynamic thing, isn't it? In certain areas or certain times, or when you're having conversations, then this, there's an opportunity for both. But in certain areas, perhaps, it's by mutual agreement, then one will be the subject in some area. So through give and receive action, or sometimes we shorten it to give and take action, come all the forces that are necessary for existence, multiplication, action. And in nature, as I say, all pairs relate centering harmoniously in this way on a common purpose. But often we don't have a common purpose in our relationships. That's essential for peace building, right? And for the UPF work. We need a common purpose. Sit down, let's define our purpose. Why are we here? What do we want to achieve? What's our end goal for this? And if two people try to engage in conversation, but they each have their own agenda, they each have their own purpose, that's not going to work. So this is very important. And we see then that God's energy in everything, I've represented it by these little green arrows. It's moving things into relationship. This is God's external form or energy, moving things into relationship and producing this dynamism so that subject and object pairs can form a common base and have a productive mutual relationship. And this is encouraging unity to create something greater, to take this relationship to a higher level. And this also becomes a foundation for God's eternal existence. So we see that there's harmonious interaction of subject and object pairs or partners. These relationships produce everything of value in the world. It's the key to producing everything that we value in terms of love, beauty, truth, goodness, all these things. Even God needs such a partner. This is Father Moon's insight. Not only do we need God, which is a kind of traditional religious view, but God needs human beings that really reflect his nature and character to have a relationship of love with. So we have a role there. We have our purpose given, from the Creator in that respect. And in response to the love that we are given, we should return beauty. And that beauty is not a physical beauty, obviously. It's an internal beauty which God is looking for and going to respond to, and it's going to help that relationship develop productively if we're showing humility or honesty or trustworthiness or faithfulness or loyalty or filial piety, a more kind of oriental concept of a really devotion to parents and a willingness to sacrifice for them, this kind of idea. So this is producing joy in this relationship between God and created world. So the whole world is full of these complementary pairs. They're everywhere, right? Even through this kind of interface with religion and science, this philosophy is saying that lightning, there down in the bottom right-hand corner, lightning is the coming together in the way we describe electricity of positive and negative charges, right? This interaction. And that is a kind of rudimentary form of masculinity and femininity coming together there. So everything exists this way. So the principles of peace talk about three lasting foundations for peace and happiness, right? The first is to find individual peace, peace in myself, and to really have those kind of higher values and the higher purpose. We can give it the name God, but if we're uncomfortable with that, you can just think of centering on higher values or centering on a higher purpose. My mind and body need to have a good, harmonious relationship centered on that common purpose, and with mind as subject and body as object. And this produces what we could call a true person, a person who's, coming to some level of spiritual maturity. Their mind-body unity means they're a person of integrity, a person whose words, associated with the body, with the mind, match their deeds, which are associated with the body. So words and deeds match, that's a person of integrity. Somebody who speaks something, very nice words, but doesn't do them themselves, or does something contradictory, we lose respect very quickly, right? As we see, this person has no integrity. So no matter how fine-sounding words that person talks, we're not going to be a follower of that person, right? Or a supporter of that person. It's going to be very difficult. But such unity needs to match words and deeds and produce a person of good character so that we can grow in character through our natural kind of process of growth over, maybe it should be 21 years and we should reach a certain level of acceptable spiritual maturity. I don't say everybody does. I certainly didn't by the age of 21, and I don't think I have yet. So, we're working on it, aren't we? But there's some kind of inherent delay in human situation. And also we're developing spiritual sensitivity to become a dwelling place of God. And that's the goal, to become such a person. To be a person who can learn to love in a true way, to give and receive true, genuine, altruistic love. And such a person is a person who's then kind of ready for the next stage of life, which will be, naturally, if they choose to do so, it will be marriage, right? So I have to have myself developed to a certain extent in this way before I can entertain that thought. So we respect people of integrity, right? And these are some that are held up often as an example. I was a religious education teacher for some years in my life for my sins, I think, where I, was asked, as part of the curriculum, you were given 3 or 4 people who were held up as examples. Here, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi. I think also we included Nelson Mandela. And then the list dried up, right? We weren't sure who else was a person of enough integrity to talk about, right? Who was not a kind of founder of religion or some great, prophet, historic figure in that way. But actually, not to insult these wonderful saintly people, they're ordinary people, right? Yeah. So we all have this potential to be such people of integrity and contributing to the world in a significant way. And we don't always have to be public figures. We're just doing what is necessary for our family and community and those around us and loving. So there are many unsung heroes in the world, right? So many. And unfortunately, we don't know their names or really give them that kind of credit. So that's to do with the kind of first, it starts with me, as our Mother Moon says. So she did a series of public talks and rallies with the title, Peace Starts With Me, right? Which is actually a very profound summary, I think, of the universally shared religious view that I have to work on myself first of all. And I have to look to myself before I criticize other people. And I have to elevate that self. And, that's the starting point of peace. But then to bring peace in human society, UPF Principles of Peace are saying very clearly, we have to start with the family. There's a connection there between a family that lives and works well and world peace. We can't ignore the family because this is a school of love and it brings peace. First of all, within that family, a good relationship between husband and wife, and then the husband and wife together as the male and female kind of representatives of God's male and female nature can represent God to the children. And by having children, those parents can experience for the first time in a more real way the love that God has for them. Because we talk about, as an analogy, the relationship between God and us as that of parents and children, right? So this is where we can start to make sense of this, that love is experienced and valued because of this, and children really should learn about love and learn about God and God's nature just very naturally in the home environment through the parents. That would be the ideal, wouldn't it, right? It's not a kind of philosophy or thing you have to go to a book to study or anything like that. But somewhere we've lost that because most marriages bring something of our immaturity into that marriage. or our self-centeredness into that marriage. And that means there are always kind of failures there on the part of people to realize that ideal. So again, centering on a higher values or a higher purpose, or shorthand, I've put God there. We can say the family is really the building block of a wider society. Why? Because, the family, society, and nation come from this model. If we've learned these aspects of love in the family, which are available there, then, and we've learned them well, we go out into society ready to engage with our other brothers and sisters. And our elders should be like our grandparents, and our youngers should be like our younger brothers and sisters. And we should treat people that way and spread the kind of love which is generated and learned in the family to wider levels as well. So any being, we say, is interdependent. We don't exist just on our own, and we can't think of ourselves that way. We're created to exist through reciprocal relationships. And I think there's nobody I've come across who spoke more about love, or true, genuine love, than Father Moon, the founder of UPF. He probably talked more about love than any other human being, I wrote there, right? Yeah. And in his thinking, true, genuine love is a deep and selfless love that seeks the well-being and happiness of others above oneself, that is seen as a divine and transformative force that has the power to heal relationships, communities, and the world at large. So it's a very necessary element, and not often talked about element, right? Who talks about love? Maybe politicians will feel silly if they talk about love, right? Because, we have to also define our terms. What are we really talking about when we talk about love? Love should be operating in every relationship, actually. And it should not be self-centered love. It should have qualities as expressed here. One shorthand version comes from psychologist Greg Bear, American psychologist. He said, true, genuine love is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. That's the kind of love we're talking about, right? Or the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. That comes from the author Scott Peck, if you've come across him, Road Less Traveled and other books. So, there are people out there, right, who are trying to promote this idea and to emphasize the importance of getting back to a true understanding of love and how it operates in human relationships, and get away from the obsession of love in a kind of rather romanticized way, right? And that aspect of love. So where do we learn this love? We learn this love in the family. It's from our parents as our first teachers. The family is really the school of love, nurturing heart and character and a primary training ground for relationships. It's also a school of morality. It's where we learn to relate to brothers and sisters, to parents and grandparents, and a basis for the norms that we're going to need in society and proper conduct in a wider world. And we learn true love also as husband and wife by seeing God in our partner and seeing the beauty in the other and the image of the Creator, so that we're living for each other and the family and the wider world, and become, as I said earlier, a model of true love to our children so they can learn it most naturally and through experience. Part of our problem today is that people growing up have never experienced true, genuine love. Unselfish, unconditional love. And if you've never experienced that, or only experienced in a limited way, how are you going to pass it on? How are you going to love with that kind of love? It's so important. And a strong family has to have a focus higher than itself. So a family is not living for itself, because that's kind of self-centeredness on a family level. We have to think always beyond that and out to the community, and that's a very good education for children when they see their parents, coming to a UPF seminar on a Saturday morning, right? With a good purpose, right? They'll say, very good. It's a good example, right? So there are 4 great loves which are learnt in the family: child's love, siblings' love, spouse's love, and parents' love. They're learnt and developed and practiced in that family unit. So, Principles of Peace are taking us back to re-evaluate the importance of the family as really the institution ordained by God. And it's not, as is commonly said, just a social construct that you can accept or reject or alter at will. It's something very fundamental of how human beings are to pass on true, genuine love down the line of their family lineage and in terms of interaction with other people. Wow. So, in the family, there are 4 levels. This is Father Moon speaking. Grandfather and grandmother. Father and mother, you and your spouse, your sons and your daughters. And the world is the extension of these relationships. Thus, you need to love the people of the world whose ages are similar to you and the people in your family. It's the same way. What did he say? I'd lost it. It's in the same way that you love your family members. So I was just going to cheekily skip a few slides and mention that really our lasting and third foundation of peace is this. It's our interaction and our relationship with the natural world, right? Again, centering on God or higher values or a common purpose which is there. We need to really be people who can be responsible stewards and have a dominion of love over the rest of the natural world, caring for the environment, ensuring material prosperity for all people, and employing developments in science and technology to good ends and good purpose to benefit human beings and the whole natural world, and how wonderful that is. When we put this together, we see that these 3 foundations for peace, individual peace, peace in the family, peace in society, and also universal peace, these have a strong resonance with a common kind of teaching or understanding, especially in the religions of the book, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, but also you'll find in other faiths as well, similar expressions. What in that tradition are called the 3 great blessings: be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. But they're just kind of simple sentence, right? So it's almost like I've been unpacking that sentence for you to show how important it is. When you put these together, there's everything there that we need for our life, and almost, I can't think of anything that we would want for our life that's not there. That's the key to happiness, the key to finding our purpose in life, and also realizing our God-given purpose, and that's so important. So I leave that with you as a thought to discuss and talk about and consider, especially in reflection to your own life and your own experience. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you.
We can make circles, little groups. Particularly, I can see one group right there, possibly 2 groups here. So maybe if you turn your chairs around.
I've got a little clock on my desk. I have a timer as well. So I don't know, but if you want
We joined this group.
maybe a battery has gone. This is from the office.
Recording stop.
Frank. Yeah, Frank. And Fumi. And yeah, anyway, you could discuss what's happened on the okay. Those who heard, he was here. And your history can say more. No, just your feelings and your discussion about so far. Because I forgot to say, this is technology, this is Hanna, Juliet, Madame, how traveling, Lapisa,